Hey everybody, welcome to Flaming Rooster Barbecue. It's been a minute, but we are back. Today we are doing a smoked ribs with a 3-2-1 method. So my previous rib video on the site is a dry rub recipe where there's no sauce involved. Depending on what part of the country you're in, you prefer wet ribs versus dry ribs. These ribs are kind of a hybrid between that is always a crowd pleaser. So there's really three parts to it. The first part is just smoke them open on the open air for 4 to 5 hours, which we'll get into. And then after that, you're gonna wrap them and we're gonna baste them with a little bit of moisture, and we'll show you what that moisture is to really tenderize that meat and let that start melting, the fat start melting on those things. And then we're gonna finish them off with a baste of barbecue sauce and a little bit of brown sugar in between there as well. So it's got a little bit of sweet, a little bit of spice, and then a little bit of wetness with that barbecue sauce, but not dripping wet, just a little sticky when you're eating them. So as a rule of thumb, I like to do about a half a rack of ribs per person. So if you've got 4 people, do 2 racks. If you've got 6 people, do 3 racks. Tonight we're doing 6 people, so we've got 3 racks of ribs. These are baby back, they're pork loin baby back ribs, so back ribs. I like the smaller ribs like these. If you get those big pork loin ribs, it's hard to just bring out the flavor and cook them evenly. They're not bad, but I just like these little guys a little bit better. And then whatever rub you want. I made this rub. I like to use my own recipes and take the little old containers and use these. This has salt, pepper, some garlic, some turbinado sugar, paprika, and some onion powder in it. But really for rib rub, you don't want to get too crazy. I mean, you could even just go salt, pepper. I like some paprika and garlic, like I said, and a little bit of that sugar, but it's up to you. There's plenty of good rib rubs out there in the store or online. That's really your choice. What the magic on these ribs is the method. So the rub is going to have an impact on it, but it's not going to be a game changer. It's really the method that we're going to do today. And then whatever adhesive you want. Some people say you don't need adhesive. Whatever suits your boat. But I prefer either mustard or olive oil, just as a little adhesive. So I'm going to put just a stream of that there and just rub it around. Just something to help the rub stick a little bit better to that meat. Some people swear that you can taste the mustard. I've been using mustard since I was 16 years old, which has been a long time. Never had anybody say, were these with mustard? It's just your preference. And there's a religious debate about that, I get it. But I'm gonna use olive oil, and then I'm gonna shake this rub up. You wanna be pretty generous. The back is just mostly the bone, so you don't have to be too generous on the back. You're still going to taste it. Like so. So get a good lathering of that, and then you want to just do a quick pat in. And then this is really where you need to make sure you got a good consistent spread of this stuff on there. So I like to do one round like that. Get it all patted in, even the sides up here. This is that end rib, boy. That end rib is where it's at when you're eating these things. If you're at a party and they've cut these things up, look for that end rib. You get extra smoke, extra rub. All right, that's about it. You don't want to overdo it, but that's about it. And again, the first step is we're just going to put these on the grill or the smoker just like this. So it's about that much rub on there. I'm going to do all 3 of these. You want to let these, you want to cover them, put them in the refrigerator for anywhere from, I prefer 2 to 8 hours. If it's longer, if it's 12 hours, it's not going to hurt it. But really, to be honest, there's a lot of days where I'm like, I want some ribs. I go to the grocery store, get some ribs, fire up the egg, and put the rub on, and probably within an hour. And that's going to do the trick too. So it's not like other meats where you got to, really let it marinate with the rub. Anywhere from an hour, 2 hours preferably, to about 6 to 8 hours. I'm going to do 2 hours for these because I'm going to get them going this morning. But I'm going to get these covered up, finish the other 2, and then we'll get the grill set up. All right, time to get the egg ready, or your smoker, whatever you got going on. I have got lump charcoal in here, as always, and I got a little fire stick. Bottom vent is open, and we're just gonna get this thing started. And if you've watched my videos before, you know it, on your long smokes, which is ribs, brisket, pork butt, anything that takes more than 6 hours, you're gonna want to keep this temperature down. So on these ribs, we're gonna try to keep them, really I prefer 225 to 250. If you need to go up to 275, that's fine. But the key is to keep consistency. So either get them at 275 and keep them at 275, or do it at 225 to 250, whatever that is. But you know, we've got a lot of charcoal in here. If you watch my other videos, the more charcoal, less airflow, easier it is to regulate the temp. And that's what we want to do here, because I'm going to try to smoke these bad boys about I can dial it in at 225 pretty easily. But I've got that fire stick in there, and I'm going to let that go with the lid open for about 10 minutes. And then I'm going to close it and let this thing, and I'm going to shuffle those around. I'm going to close it, let it go until all the white smoke burns off, and then close it down and start to get it dialed in, and then I'll be back and show you the wood. All right, so that grill is hot and the white smoke is gone. So now we're going to put the wood in. So I prefer, actually with ribs, I go back and forth. I've been on a kick where I do just about a quarter of oak and then the rest maple wood, and it really makes a good flavor. So that's what I'm going to do today. You can do hickory, you can do all maple, you can do all oak, you can do whatever suits your fancy. But you know, these things are only going to need smoke for about 5 hours. So you don't want to put too much wood in there, because it's going to be a waste. But you know, that should probably do it there for 5 hours. And I like to put it in the middle and just let it kind of simmer on down, and I'll put some smaller pieces on the edge here. But that's going to start smoking immediately. And again, that is maple and oak. And then you're going to put your place setter on, feet side up. And then a little extra tip, you don't have to do this. I like to get this tin foil right here with some water in it. This is going to add a little bit of moisture to those ribs. I don't have any apple cider vinegar. If you do, you can use that and a little bit of water. This is actually some applesauce and water, and that's it. And then it's going to help tenderize those ribs and add a little flavor to it. And so I'm going to let that, I'm going to close that down, and I'm going to put the vents at the proper settings, which is, for me, 225 is just about like that, and then that bottom just about like that. So I'm going to let these this grill get to 225, 250, and then we'll get the ribs on. All right, that grill is dialed into 225. So I'm going to open that bad boy up, and I've got a rib rack in here. If you don't have one, you can lay them flat. If your smoker could take it, these large big green eggs, you can do about two easily flat, or you can cut one in half and do 3 total. But this rib rack allows you to do up to 5 or 6, which I prefer. And so I'm going to put these bad boys like that. And the ultimate temperature we want to get these things to is 200 to 203 degrees, where it's just going to be falling off the bone. The first part that we're doing here is about 5 hours. So don't worry about temp in the first 5 hours. Worry about your grill temp, which you want to keep again from 225 to 275. I'm going to keep these around 225 to 250. So I'm going to shut this down and let them go for 5 hours, and then we'll move to step 2. All right, so those ribs have been smoking for about 5 hours, and now that was step 1 of 3, so the 3-2-1 method. Next is we're going to add a little bit of moisture to those ribs. So a lot of people do this different ways. I've done this for years, and I've kind of perfected what I think is the best option, which is a little bit of butter. So this is melted butter from the microwave, a little bit of honey, and you're going to baste these ribs in this. And so not a whole lot of honey. I'll probably put a 1.5 tablespoons to 2 tablespoons of that. and then beer. And so it doesn't take a lot because we're just basting it, but that's it, probably the same amount of honey and beer. And you're gonna mix that up, and you're gonna create this good moisture of honey, beer, and butter. I'm gonna melt that a little bit further down in the microwave, get that honey real melted. And then I'm gonna show you what we're gonna do, but we're gonna go move that to the green egg with some foil, and we're gonna wrap these up. All right, as I mentioned, this is step 2 of the process. So ribs have been on for 5 hours. We're gonna take each one of them individually, and I've got my awesome gloves that I love here. I'm gonna take that first rack of ribs, and technically these things are over 165 right now, so they could be done, but again, we're trying to get them up to 200 plus, so 200 to 203. And you can see those bad boys are looking pretty good. A lot of people think those are done, but they are not. We're just starting the magic. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this base, and you don't wanna do too much of this. This is a liquid, and if you do too much, what's gonna happen is you're gonna notice, because we're gonna wrap these tight in foil, it's basically gonna steam these things, and it's gonna be too much, and they're gonna taste delicious, but they're gonna fall off the bone, and it's almost gonna be like you did them in the crock pot, and that is not the outcome we want. So we want to be generous, but not too generous. We don't want a bunch of moisture sitting underneath them. So that's about right. There. That's one thing we're going to do right now. The next is you're going to get brown sugar. Just normal brown sugar. And you're going to take this, get it in your hand. You're just going to sprinkle them all along, almost like you did that rub. There. Evenly across it, and that is going to create a nice caramelized bark on these, and we're just going to wrap them up like so. I'm going to do all 3 of them like this, and then we're going to get them back on the grill. Alright, so we've got all 3 of them wrapped. I'm just going to put them in there. Again, we're pretty much done with smoke. They're completely wrapped, and we're going to put those in there like that. I'm going to keep it at 225 and just slow and low close that lid, and I'm going to leave them on there for about an hour and a half. And I know an hour and a half based on the way those ribs are falling off the bone already. They're on their way. Sometimes if they're not falling off the bone like that, I'll do 2 hours. But on these, I'm going to do an hour and a half, keep them at 225, and then we'll move to the 3rd step. All right, welcome back. These ribs have been in there for about an hour and a half, fully covered. So let's take these bad boys out and see what they're looking like. All right. So those are looking really good. You can see all that brown sugar is melted in there. It's just got a nice little bark still on it. Now the last step of this process is barbecue sauce. So you want to lather it on there pretty good, but not too much, right? So you just want to put a glaze on. Once it heats up, it'll go a lot easier. Like this. You want to just put it on. I just do it on the top of these ribs. There's no really reason you want to do it on the underside, but just like that, you just want to do a fine layer, coat it all the way around. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do 1 round of that. That's it. So I'm going to wrap these back up in the same foil. I'm going to put these back on. And since these are pretty much done, and how do I know these are done? You can start seeing the bone right here, if you could see that. I could take the temperature on these. They're probably going to be right around 190, but I'm going to put them back in for 30 minutes, and I'm going to take the temperature, and I'm trying to get them to 203. If they're at 203, what I'm going to do is just uncover them, and what we want to do is create that bark on there a little bit, so that's still going to keep the barbecue sauce on there, but create the bark. But you want to give it a little bit of air at the end. So I'm going to put barbecue sauce on all 3 racks of those ribs, cover them back up, and I'm gonna put them in back for 45 minutes covered, and then we'll see what we got. All right, so it's been 45 minutes and they've been on that grill wrapped up. Let's see how they're looking. Oh boy. Now you can see on that bone line right there, I mean, they're coming off. And so let's check the temp on them. Perfect, we're at 190. Actually, we're up 197. And 190 down there. So this is perfect. This is a great temperature to have. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this rack on back on the grill directly as is until that temp gets up to 203, which is hopefully at least 30 minutes. The goal here is to put them back just like this. You get them back on the grill like this. What it's going to do, it's going to create a bark when you take that foil off and let it have a little air and get a little moisture. And you'll see at the end, those things should bark up good and crisp. And then we're gonna let them rest, and by the end of the resting period, they should be nice and firm. But again, I'm gonna put them back on the grill, no cover, until they get to 203. All right, so I left those ribs uncovered on the smoker for about 45 minutes, and they look perfect. So let's see what's going on here. All right, look at those, the golden. You got a bark on them now, and now we're gonna rest these bad boys. But we're gonna rest these things for, ribs. You don't have to do as much as beef, but at least 15 minutes, preferably a little bit longer, 20 minutes. But I mean, I can tell these things, you got to be careful. They're gonna fall off the bone right now, but you let them rest a little bit, they're gonna firm up. But those are fantastic. So that's the 3-2-1 method, tried and true, a guarantee. If you have people over that like dry ribs, wet ribs, this is right in the middle, and it's going to have a little sweet, that smoke, and then that sauce at the end. It's really going to taste good. So bon appetit.